Hello, I'm Les Bennett, and I'm with the American Association of Pharmaceutical Scientists. It is my pleasure to host this special series of interviews with individuals who are recognized for their innovations and contributions to the pharmaceutical sciences. Speaking on behalf of the association, one of our goals is to develop a series of videotapes in which we invite outstanding, eminent pharmaceutical scientists to discuss their points of view on the events, issues, and challenges that have shaped the direction of the pharmaceutical sciences. We will also explore their perspective on where the pharmaceutical sciences are headed in the future. Today is our pleasure to have the opportunity to visit with Professor Patrick DeLuca of the University of Kentucky and also our present AAPS president. So, Pat, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
My pleasure.
You've had a long and distinguished career as a pharmaceutical scientist. I think it'd be interesting to hear why you became a pharmaceutical scientist.
I guess it started by interest in pharmacy and working in a pharmacy. I was, working in a corner drugstore, and Judy reminded me that she went over to the Coca-Cola Museum and was talking to them. She got interviewed on how I went to pharmacy school because I was a soda jerk. I used to make the best, ice cream sodas. But seriously, I got interested in pharmacy by working in a pharmacy because I had initially I was going to go into a teaching college. I was going to go on and changed my mind the day before going off to Kutztown in Pennsylvania, and told the pharmacist there that I'm really interested in pharmacy. So he said, well, let's make some phone calls, and he called PCP. You mentioned PCP before, and Philadelphia College of Pharmacy, and he knew somebody there, and he said, well, what do you need? So I needed a couple of courses. And so I took some science courses. I worked. He says, work. He says, I'd like you to work for me for a year. And so instead of going on to teaching college, I worked for a year and worked in the pharmacy, went on and took night school with the veterans, and then went on. But I went to Temple because in the process received a senatorial scholarship and went to pharmacy school at Temple. And then became very much interested in the sciences and research. That was the time when we got a lot of science in the College of Pharmacy curriculum. And decided that to go on to graduate school. And so in the summer between going from my BS to going on for a master's degree, I went to work for SmithKline and French laboratories in Philadelphia, and in the analytical department, and worked for a very astute person called Abe Schlescher, but learned quite a bit about spectrophotometric methods of analysis. And when the summer ended and I was supposed to go back to graduate school, they said, well, why don't you stay on, and we have a Carr Fellowship that we offer, which was a very nice fellowship to go back to for your PhD program. And so I says, good, I'll work another year. Was married, had children coming along at the time. And so it was good. It was a good learning experience, and ended up getting the Carr Fellowship and going back to Temple and working with Harry Kostenbader.
But the Carr Fellowship was not analytical. It was anything.
No, anything you wanted.
Yeah.
It was completely open. It had no, and I had no. There was no requirements that I would go back to work for them, and there were no requirements on their part to take me. So it was wide open. It was just beautiful, and so I went into the pharmaceutics area, physical pharmacy area, with Harry Kostenbader, and did some did a master's actually. Wrote a thesis, and then went on to the PhD and wrote a dissertation. So and then decided to go to work with CIBA.
Okay, so you worked at CIBA, and then you started interacting. Bring me up to date on
Well,
what was
yes,
going on.
you know, and we at SEBA, I had the opportunity to do research, and so I took that opportunity. You know, it was one of these things where, you know, a couple of nights a week I spent in the labs and engaged in research.
I mean, independent research that was not related to the company.
Well, it was, you know, it was research that I was interested in doing,
Right.
but it was based on, you know, kind of the formulation work that I was doing, extending that. I mean, I wasn't required to do it, but it meant that it was a scholarly effort,
Right.
and would result in publication. So I had the opportunity while I was working in industry to publish, and you know, eventually I then that was an area that I wanted to pursue. I wanted to do research, and felt that I had the capacity also to teach, and it was we had a chance to interact with people like Takaguchi and, you know, Joe Swintoski and those people that were in education, and you know, Jim DeLuca was we were actually classmates at Temple. We went to undergraduate school together and all, and so we were always kept in touch. And so eventually I ended up at Kentucky, where Swintoski and DeLuca and Kostenbacher were.
That was your first teaching job?
Yes. Yeah, and I stayed, and I went there for 1 year.
How many years have you been there now?
38.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, 1 year. We said, we'll go 1 year, you know, and see how we like. We're probably going to go someplace else. Be a good one year break from industry. I would say.
So what was your drive in academia in terms of where you wanted to, I want to separate the research from the teaching, of what you were trying to accomplish in your research program? What was your vision?
Well, I think, you know, and I had the opportunity when I was with SEBA to do some research in you know, with drug delivery, looking at some novel solubilizing agents. You know, I'd gotten involved with freeze drying. You may not know that I freeze-dried coffee 2 years before the patent issued for freeze-dried coffee.
But didn't patent it, right?
Well, I never even thought about it. You know, I never did research thinking about patenting. I didn't for any monetary gain. So it was the furthest thing from my mind. But when freeze-dried coffee came out, I says, I want to find out when this thing was applied for, and I saw that it was actually about almost 2 years after I had actually freeze-dried coffee, just as a kind of a lark. You know, I had to do a trial at a company. We were buying a freeze dryer, and I says, well, I think I'll freeze dry some coffee. You got any coffee? I'm going to test out your freeze dryer and freeze dried coffee. But anyway, it was an area that you know, had little attention, research attention, and I had the opportunity to do some research in that area while I was in industry, and got interested in the parenteral area because SEBA was very much interested in setting up a facility for injectables and disposable syringes. So we actually they had a patented Verject system, and they asked me to head up and build a plant. So I actually ended up with you know, working with engineers and building a plant and getting it going with making rubber. I got into actually formulating rubber, molding rubber, and whatnot. Plastics. We were actually molding the plastic syringes. So I learned how to do those things while I was in industry. But it came to a point where I just felt that I was, you know, I wanted to do something different than that. I didn't have any, you know, desires to. I was moving up. I was a plant manager, and but I didn't have any really aspirations of going higher or anything like that. It didn't turn me on, and I had family and the kids and all, and wanted to spend time with them. So the opportunity presented itself. They tried to get me there 2 years before. I went down to visit Kentucky, but wasn't the right time. But 2 years later, I says, okay, let's go for a year and try it out.
Try it out.
We stayed. I mean, the whole family stayed there and all. But it was good because I was able to continue my research in freeze drying, I think, and do some nice work and be able to publish and then got into the area of drug delivery. But I was interested in teaching too.
Mm-hmm.
So it was at a time when you joined the faculty, you were expected to teach.
Right.
It wasn't you got a year, to grace that we're not gonna bother you for a year. Just write grants and to get your research going. I had to get right in there and get a course going. And I think that's good. I mean, I'm not. I don't think I'm a firm believer in not having a junior faculty member come in and not be involved in teaching.
Okay, so let me switch. You've been very influential in leadership of the pharmaceutical sciences and had a big impact both in the Academy of Pharmaceutical Sciences and here in AAPS. Is this something you felt was really important for the profession and for yourself?
Well, yeah, I enjoyed that. I think, when I was in graduate school, in Philadelphia area, they had the Philadelphia discussion group. So even as a graduate student, and of course when I was working at SIBA, I would go to those meetings. And so I enjoyed that kind of activity and was always quite willing to get involved in maybe giving a seminar when they had their meetings on some of the research I was doing, even while I was in industry. So it was, and then when I was, I always felt that it was very important, and I still do today, and try to impress upon the students, is that scholarship's important. That when they're program, that they've got to be thinking about when they're in the graduate program, that they've got to write papers. They've got to, that the research is the search for the truth, and so and that, like Einstein said, imagination is greater than knowledge. So they should be. And I've always felt that when they're doing research, it's a time to make a mountain out of a molehill. You should, if you spent a day in the lab and analyze your results, you should try to spend 2 days writing. And so I thought it was always important that if you're going to do some research, you should be doing it with the idea that you're going to share it and with the scientific community. So I've always felt that way, and I still feel today too that even teachers should include in their teaching is not some fundamental concepts, general concepts, but also some of the research they're doing. And
is it a bright future for the pharmaceutical sciences?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think the opportunities are there. I think it's the real key is how do you make the opportunities and also take advantage of opportunities. I think you've got to be searching for it. And I've always been one that I kind of forget the negatives. I have a tough time remembering any negative aspects.
No wonder your wife loves you so much.
It could, and I just and I even do that with my students too. It's been always that you know well that you have occasions in the laboratory with people that but usually I after a period of time I forget those things. That are corrected situations that need to be corrected, but try to get beyond that and not dwell on it and to take the positives that I've experienced in my life. And so I just think there's a lot of opportunities out there in the pharmaceutical sciences. And I think with organization, you talked about getting involved with organizations. I think it's people like you. I hope myself that can be models or for this to try to impress. I tried to, even with new faculty as they come in. We just hired a new faculty member who was taking over some of the research that I was doing, I said, so you going to the meeting? And she said, well, I wasn't planning to. I said, well, you should go to the meeting. I said, yeah. And so she's here.
That's good.
But, I just feel, and the graduate students, too, I think they really have to be here. They have to see this. They have to, be part of it. And so I think it's important. I think it's important in our teaching. I've always tried to impress upon the students, certainly ethics. It's and truth in the science. It's the one thing you want to publish, but you want to publish the truth.
Right.
So,
Pat, tell us a little bit about Pharmaceutical Tech, because I think it's your initiative, and and it's been an important initiative for the association.
Yeah. Well, it's been I certainly enjoyed some of the biological aspects of the pharmaceutical sciences, but I think from my industry experience and got involved with the technology aspects of it, not so much engineering type of the aspects of it, but the technology and the processing aspects of it, a physical pharmacy. I guess I try to focus in on the physical pharmacy, because there you could really get involved in the research, in the science, and then take it from that stage, to either preclinical or even commercialization, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that, and so I don't think I was ever, while I think a lot of the things I did could be construed as manufacturing, it was usually the pre-commercialization scale that I was involved with, that I enjoyed doing. I enjoyed bringing research into the kind of the manufacturing or the preclinical scale-up phase of things, and freeze drying was very opportunistic at that time, because it was being just coming on the scene, and so.
What about the journal, the Pharmaceutical Tech Journal? What drove that?
Well, again, I think I was always quite interested in publishing and scholarly effort, and when the opportunity came, and it was largely because I was involved with AAPS, and then they had the interest of going into publication area, and we started with with the print journal first, and that was very, very enjoyable to see that develop and still going. I mean, Mike Akers is now doing that. I took when Gordy Amadon was president and he was gung-ho on online stuff, I then decided, well, I wanted to stay with AAPS, and they wanted to go to the online, and it was a new area, and it kind of interested me, and so I decided, well, I'll.
How many years did you serve as editor?
I was editor for the
Pharmaceutical Tech. Yeah.
For the Pharmaceutical Tech was about 5 years. Yeah, and then when the online started, I just gave that up. Lee Kirsch is now the chief editor of the Pharmaceutical Tech.
So what are you going to be doing? I know you're going to be running the association the next year. What are your plans for the next? Well, it's after this association year. What are you going to be doing?
Well, I still want to. I think some of the things that I'm trying to embark on with AAPS and this whole global health arena is something that I think I'd like to continue with afterwards. I'm really not inclined to go in the backyard and plant roses or tomatoes or anything like that. I think I'd like to do, some other things that I'm capable of doing, and so I'll, try to, hopefully, I'll take it as I go along, and after this is over, and if I'm still around, there'll be something to do.
What are you emeritus, or are you?
No, I'm still I'm on 50%. Yeah.
50% at the university. Yeah.
Yes.
And you still have graduate students?
No, I'm not taking. I have visiting graduate students coming. I have one from Korea at the moment, and there's always opportunities, to have from either Japan or Korea or Italy. Some visiting graduate students will come for 6 months or a year and work with me.
What kind of science are they doing right now?
Well, we're right now. I'll tell you, and you may have heard about this because this is a very interesting project. It's a gum for the U.S. Army, for the soldiers in Iraq. They can't brush their teeth, and I talked with a few of the soldiers, and they say it's an anti-plaque, antibacterial agent. It's a peptide, and they came to me and they wanted to put it in the gum. They wanted to have it as a more of a sustained release. So we've got like a 40 to 60 minute release of the antibacterial agent from the gum by chewing, and it's very, very effective. We've had 4 publications on it in the microbiology journals there, and I guess the first publication, first time it was given, was about 3 years ago here, and
at APS.
Yeah. 176 million hits on that. Yeah. That's mind-boggling. So anyway, that is that right now they're going into clinical trials. I met with the FDA. The question is whether the Army wants it to be over the counter, and the FDA has been talking about being a prescription. And so, because there's a lot of interest from the private sector in this, and so it is interesting. The one interesting thing was talking to a soldier. I was on the plane with him. He was in his fatigues, and so we got to talking about it. He just thought that was wonderful. He says, if we had the choice of carrying a toothbrush or another bullet, he says, we're going to carry a bullet with us, So, and anyway, they brushing their teeth with the toothbrush and toothpaste, when they're out in the field. They can't spit it on the ground because the enemy will know where they are. So, so it's an interesting project.
So they take the gum and they put it on their shoe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, Pat, thank you so much for spending the time with us. Well, you've been a really innovative and influential leader of the pharmaceutical sciences. For many years. You had a strong impact in dosage form, drug delivery, freeze drying, all kinds of physical pharmacy. It's wonderful that you've been willing to come back and serve as AAPS president again, and thank you for sharing this time with us.
Thank you, Les.